These are the stories topping the news. National consultation on the economy today. Officials says Antigua and Barbuda is as ready as it can be for Ebola and muted the celebration as China marks 65th National Day. Good afternoon and welcome to ZIZ's Midday newscast for Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. I am JD Keynes. Now for the news in detail. Scores of representatives from the public and private sectors have gathered at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort in Frigate Bay for the annual National Consultation on the Economy. Coordinated by the Ministry of Finance, this year's consultation focuses on the theme, Keeping the Edge, Energizing Growth and Human Capital Development. The opening ceremony commenced at 9:30 a.m. and featured remarks by Financial Secretary Hilary Hazel, President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce Damian Hobson, Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Sir K. Dwight Venner, and Health Minister the Honorable Marcella Liburd. Prime Minister and Finance Minister the Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas delivered the feature address. Other government officials present were Deputy Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Earl Asim Martin, Labour and Foreign Affairs Minister the Honorable Patrice Nisbet, Attorney General the Honorable Jason Hamilton, and the Nevis Island Administration's Finance Permanent Secretary Colin Dorr. Today's consultation will feature presentations and facilitate discussions on building up our human capital through social reform and skills development, public-private partnership, an option for infrastructure development, key elements for energy security in St. Kitts and Nevis, recent economic performance and medium-term outlook, and applications of renewable energy, the Speed Tech Energy Experience. The national consultation on the economy is expected to conclude at 1 p.m. In related news, the government's fiscal standing is strong. This is according to the country's Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas. While delivering the feature address at this morning's ceremony to mark the opening of the 2014 National Consultation on the Economy, Prime Minister Douglas examined areas of growth for the country. He spoke of the length of his government's debt reduction initiatives. Meantime, the government of St. Kitts Nevis, particularly the Ministry of Finance, has expressed gratitude to public and private sector employees and others who have contributed to the annual consultation on the economy for their corporation. Financial Secretary Hilary Hazel said today that several projects rolled out by the government in recent years are the result of discussions during previous consultation events. This morning's opening ceremony was broadcast live on ZIZ Radio and will be rebroadcast on ZIZ TV. Fishermen and other stakeholders are wrapping up a month-long training session on fish processing. Participants were exposed to various aspects of theoretical and practical training, including how to debone, package and label balahu, gar, mahi-mahi, tuna and wahoo. A facilitator was brought in from St. Vincent to deliver the practical part of the training. A closing ceremony is slated for this afternoon at 4 p.m. at the Bastia Fisheries Complex. Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Nigel Carty, is scheduled to deliver closing remarks and distribute certificates to the participants. According to officials, the aim of the workshop was to raise the standard of fish products to international levels. The workshop was jointly funded by the Department of Marine Resources and cooperatives in association with the Basic Needs Trust Fund and the Caribbean Development Bank. In regional news, Antigua and Barbuda's Chief Medical Officer Dr. Rhonda Seeley Thomas, who is currently attending a series of meetings in Washington, D.C. to discuss the response to Ebola, said the local task force set up to deal with the Ebola crisis will be meeting this afternoon to finalize a draft response plan, but the country is as ready as it can be. Another member of the local task force, Dr. James Knight, confirmed that the nation's emergency medical services EMS have already identified the ambulance to be used in the event of an Ebola case in the country. He said technicians have been trained in the use and removal of personal protective equipment and that further training was scheduled for later this month. Dr. Seeley Thomas told Antigua's Observer Media House that representatives of the Pan American Health Organization will be arriving on island in the coming months to assist with preparing the proposed quarantine facility at the Margetson building. St. Lucia's health officials confirmed that the island has recorded an imported case of malaria. However, the ministry stresses that the general public should not panic, as it is not the first time that the island has recorded an imported case. We hear more in this report.
The Ministry of Health says an Indian student who traveled from India and arrived in St. Lucia on the 13th of September is recovering from malaria at one of the island's hospitals. The current climate is one of intense fear and panic as it relates to diseases and infections. News of the malaria case has caused major concern among the public, but the Ministry of Health assures that dealing with malaria is not new to the department. Malaria is a mosquito-borne infectious disease with symptoms such as fever, fatigue, vomiting, and headaches. National epidemiologist Nahum Shabatis says St. Lucia has recorded cases of malaria in the past. In every previous case of malaria, it has been an imported case. More importantly, he says, is that the Ministry of Health has been able to successfully treat each case of malaria in the past.
So far, we have not had local transmission with respect to malaria, I would say, over the last 10 years. This case is no different. This case is an imported case, and normally the ministry manages cases properly because we have not had, as I mentioned, we haven't had local transmission, and persons most of the times have been cured and continue on with their lives.
Shabatis says every case of malaria is thoroughly investigated to decrease the likelihood of local transmission.
For example, to find out the environment around which the person is staying, and also to treat the environment, if possible, to prevent transmission by the vector, which is on the mosquito, but this time it's not Aedes, it's Anopheles mosquito. But as I said, this is not new to us. I'm treating malaria and investigating malaria, and we'll just continue as we do the same with this one.
An organization which represents women's rights is urging the police to stop ignoring a young woman who claimed she had been gang raped in Midday, Guyana. Ivor Wharton reports.
Over the rape of a young woman in Midday, Shalina Najir, an activist who joined the protest, added that victims of rape and sexual assault are not properly dealt with by police officers and officials at hospitals.
Here calling for the authorities, including the police, including the healthcare workers, to do their job and enforce the Sexual Offences Act, which is a wonderful law on the books, but it's not being implemented.
The police, the frontline persons that people go to report rape to, they are ill-equipped to deal with the victims of rape. And we are asking that the police get on board to work to protect children and women and any victim of rape so that we can have justice in our society.
Another woman on the picket line says she was there to lend support to the cause, as she says the young woman's case is troubling and very serious.
2014, come on, you know, we've got fantastic legislation. It's held up as a model for the Caribbean, for the English-speaking Caribbean. Yet we can't seem to make it work for us. Is that acceptable? No, of course not. What happens to the victim? She gets no justice. What happens to her life after this? Do we have any idea what the effects will be on her mental health, her physical health? No. So, you know, this is why I'm out here, because it's not a women's only issue. It's an issue for all of us. It's an issue for all Guyanese, and I think it's something that needs to be highlighted over and over and over again.
The young woman recently reported to police that she was gang raped in the Region 8 community of Midday, but today the police are yet to launch an investigation into the matter. Reporting for Capital News.
Internationally, China's president has promised to safeguard Hong Kong's interests. It is the first time he has spoken about the issue since the protests began. Al Jazeera's Adrian Brown reports from Beijing.
The Forbidden City, the heart of Imperial Beijing. On a day of patriotic pride, these people know what's allowed and what isn't. So no displays of support for the Hong Kong students here. The only show of solidarity was for the Communist Party, whose rule began here 65 years ago.
I hope stability and peace will remain in our country. The more stable, the better. We don't want to see China divided.
As a Chinese citizen, I'm very proud of the development we have achieved in the past 65 years. China is a great country.
But this anniversary is being overshadowed by events in Hong Kong, creating the biggest challenge for President Xi Jinping since he assumed power almost 2 years ago. During a speech on Tuesday night, he made no direct reference to the protests, but pledged that China would protect Hong Kong's interests.
The central government will unswervingly implement the guidelines of one country, two systems, and the basic law, and safeguard the long-term prosperity and stability of Hong Kong and Macau.
Ultimately, it is President Xi Jinping who will now have to resolve what is happening in Hong Kong, and his options are limited. Either he gives the protesters part or all of what they want, or a decision is made to use force to end the unrest. China says the protests in Hong Kong are illegal and creating social instability. But internet censorship means many Chinese will be unaware about what's happening there. October the 1st is the most important date in China's political calendar, and security was especially tight near Tiananmen Square, a place that is a reminder of another student-led protest that threatened the party. Adrian Brown, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
An 8-year-old San Diego boy is among the latest children to contract enterovirus D68. CNN's Paul Verkamen has the details.
Sports fan Will Baker is 8 years old, minutes older than his twin Emma, a piano player, a right-handed infielder who several weeks ago suddenly lost the use of his throwing arm.
It's heartbreaking because there's so many things he does so well that he needs his right arm for.
The San Diego third grader is one of the latest children in the United States, some clustered in Colorado and in Boston, to suffer from weakness in limbs, neurological illness, and cranial nerve dysfunction. Will's parents asked us not to show video of his face, now swollen by steroids.
Not knowing was definitely the hardest part for me.
After weeks of agonizing tests, uncertainty, doctors finally told Will's divorced parents their son had a
positive nose swab for the enteroviral virus.
As with other cases in the U.S., Will suffered from a respiratory illness before being hospitalized with weakness in limbs. The Centers for Disease Control are now asking America's hospitals to keep their eyes open to similar cases. But the CDC says it does not know if there's an association between the enterovirus EVD68 that's circulating and paralytic conditions children like Will are experiencing. It's a maddening mystery for parents.
We just have to look at the positive, and he's here, and start teaching him how to write stories and do sports with his left hand.
Will's fingers on his limp right arm still move well enough for him to play piano.
It's just amazing, and he's inspiring at the same time.
Will's parents say the prognosis is not good for their son regaining full use of his right arm. But Will told us off camera he still dreams of playing first base in the major leagues. Paul Verkamen, CNN, San Diego.
And now for the weather. The skies today will be partly sunny along with some patchy clouds later in the afternoon. Winds will blow from the east at 10 to 20 miles per hour, and temperatures will reach a high of 31 degrees and a low of 26 degrees. This evening we will see mostly clear skies with winds blowing from the east at 10 to 20 miles per hour. And that's it for ZIZ's Midday Newscast. Join us later today when we present our major news package. I have been your presenter, JD Keynes. Have a great day.